The organizational honoree receives a prize of $10,000 for the organization, and here to read the citation is Lillian.
Yes, so the honoree is Families for Safe Streets. Families for Safe Streets was founded in 2014. It provides advocacy and support to confront the epidemic of traffic violence. FSS is comprised of hundreds of members who have been injured or lost loved ones in crashes and now transform their grief by telling personal stories of trauma and loss to raise awareness and bring about policy and legislative change. Through hard-fought campaigns, Family for Safe Streets has convinced the authorities to lower the speed limit and bring speed safety cameras to nearly every school district in New York City. Their services include support for communities, peer mentoring, logistical assistance, and a resource guide. Their amazing work is helping to make a congested city safer for all of us who walk its increasingly crowded streets.
So please welcome co-founders Amy Cohen and Mary Beth Kelly.
Thank you for this prestigious award. We are so grateful to Lori Tisch, the Tisch family, the selection committee, Hunter President Jennifer Rabb, and Dean Mary Kavanaugh of the Hunter College School of Social Work, where I received my social work degree, and so many of us here today did as well. And of course, to Roosevelt House. On behalf of everyone in Families for Safe Streets, we are honored to be selected for this prize. I want to recognize first all of our members from Families for Safe Streets who are here with us today. Please stand if you're a member and if you are able, or raise a hand to be recognized for this honor. And some in the back. This is a collective recognition of our joint, hard-fought efforts. All of us, as you have heard, have lost a family member, suffered an injury in a crash, or are the caregiver for someone who has. Together, we have lost children, parents, spouses, siblings, legs, brain functioning, mobility, and our collective well-being. Together, we can fill an ocean with our tears.
I will second Amy's expression of gratitude to the Joan H. Tisch Legacy Project. This award has special significance to us for its placement in public health. I wish to highlight the health professionals here tonight. They have stood with us to grow our movement. I give a special shout out to Deborah Travis. Where are you, Deborah? Who nominated us for this award, and for the way she has connected so many of her trauma patients and their families to us through her being the director of the trauma program at St. Luke's Mount Sinai. Thank you also to the families whose children were patients of the beloved pediatrician, Dr. Daniel Kammerman, for joining us here tonight. I want to give huge thanks to the Board, Advisory Council, and the incomparable staff of Transportation Alternatives. You are the backbone of our efforts. And to all the partners who help us with this, thank you.
Families for Safe Streets is the group no one should ever have to join. We have paid the price for society's failure to recognize that traffic violence is a public health crisis. A recognition finally happening today with this Community Health Prize. For me, it is 6.5 years since my 12-year-old son, Sammy, was killed. Adorable, bright, kind, loving, and sorely missed. 6.5 heart-wrenching years. And yet, with the support we provide one another, together we have forged a path forward, not only for ourselves, but for our city. We have proven that our collective voices when they are the apex of a grassroots advocacy effort and are guided by the legislative and policy expertise of transportation alternatives, we have proven our voices together literally save lives. Together, we confront the epidemic of traffic violence, and we chose the word confront intentionally because we tell our stories and take action in a way meant to jolt complacency, provoke empathy, and jumpstart the political will needed to stop this preventable crisis. In February 2014, we came together as a group of under 24. We now number over 400 members. 296 people were killed in 2013 in New York City. The year before we came together, thousands more suffered life-altering injuries. In the 6 years since our founding, traffic deaths have declined dramatically, in stark contrast to the rest of the nation, and we have likely saved over 400 lives. We have become a powerful force in Albany and New York City with a unique ability to cut through bureaucratic resistance and bring real changes in street safety. We have provided a voice to hundreds personally impacted by this epidemic. They told us it would take 10 years to lower New York City's speed limit. We did it in 4 months. Our next big win did take a little bit longer. Did take a little bit longer, but 3 years fighting, New York City now will soon have the largest speed safety camera program in the nation. And just last month, we stood with City Council Speaker Johnson and Mayor de Blasio at the passage of the new master plan bill, which will design our streets with safety as the #1 priority. Yet there is still so much to do. Even now, with all we have done, every 2 hours, someone is killed or seriously injured in a crash in New York City, resulting in an annual toll of over 200 deaths and thousands of life-altering injuries each year. Each day, families and communities like ours are torn apart. Today, February 4th, marks 7 years since FSMS members Judy Kotick and Ken Bandes lost their daughter Ella, and 1 year since member Jean Gannon lost her partner Chaim. And they are only 2 of the many killed and injured on this day in years past, and each day, a dozen more New Yorkers join the ranks. Traffic violence is not only a public health crisis for all New Yorkers, it is an equity crisis. The victims of traffic violence are disproportionately poor, people of color, children, the elderly, and those with limited abilities. Our army of involuntary volunteers is growing. As you heard, Joan Tisch used to show up and say, "I'm Joan and I would like to volunteer." This is what we hear too. Those who know the horrors that Mary Beth and I do say, "I wish this had not happened to me. I cannot stand by and let it happen to anyone else. I am here to help."
The incomparable Amy Cohen.
Keep going.
My story as a Safe Streets advocate activist began in 2006 when my husband Henry was killed as we were cycling together. He is forever missed by 2 children, thousands of patients, and me. As a physician, he rode his bicycle to the apartments of his AIDS patients during the 80s when they expressed that they felt shame sitting in his waiting room. He also allowed them to die at home rather than having to be rehospitalized, and he would be there with them. As a physician, he had taken an oath, do no harm, though terrible harm was done to him. But Martin Luther King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. As a social worker, like Amy, I saw my husband's death in context, as that's what we do. Transportation alternatives were the lone advocates in the fight for safe streets in 2006. Henry's death pushed me to activism, transforming my grief into the fight for a livable city where New Yorkers are not crushed under the wheels of a car culture. In grief, we cling to kindness, to compassion. As Henry James said, we work in the dark, we do what we can. TA helped me in that dark time, and 7 years into volunteering with them, they would host that first meeting of the founding members of Families for Safe Streets. Would our voices have any power, we wondered? We soon learned that our stories held extraordinary power. On this very special day for us, we recognized and affirmed as well. We feel recognized and affirmed as well, since this award demands applicants meet 3 criteria. The first is sustained achievement. FSS provides ongoing support for bereaved families and survivors. We have 1 life-saving infrastructure changes to our streets, the key to the zero in the Vision Zero. Our efforts over 3 years in our speed camera fight finally culminated in civil disobedience, landing me and others in jail, and the governor finally taking notice. Second criteria, imagination. We dare to dream of a livable city where walking, biking, and public transit are the first, not the last priorities of our electeds, who pass bills that either hinder or support navigating our streets safely. Out from constant fear in a dense urban environment, we need viable choices for mobility. The third criteria is the impact of the work must be positive and lasting. We've laid the footprint for generations to come. Protected bike lanes, calmer streets, decreased fatalities and serious injuries for all street users. We've altered the conversation. Sorry to say, we have never felt the wind from our departments of health beneath our sails. Hopefully that will change. We have been trying unsuccessfully so far to bring our commissioners around to declaring a public health emergency and working with us to end the monstrous epidemic in our midst that claims more lives than gun violence and cripples over 4,000 New Yorkers every year. Perhaps this prize will help mobilize them to action. In such troubled times, we try to make meaning of our world, but with growing fear, we can become what the political scientist Eitan Hirsch labels political hobbyists, watching TV, reading the news, but feeling paralyzed, except to pat ourselves on the back for being well informed. Not knowing an action to take, we become democracy tourists. Even for starters, choosing to quit Amazon, drive less, shop locally, you take action. Whether through joining TA, becoming a friend of FSS, or funding us, you correct injustice. Consider transportation as a prism. Hold it up to the light. You will see social injustice. Who has access to transportation and at what price? If you're injured, can you afford a lawyer? Healthcare. Environmental justice. What is the carbon footprint of a car culture? And the right to health and well-being. How much carnage do we ignore as unfortunate accidents rather than realizing they are crashes and preventable? Did you know that extreme asthma rates are found in car and truck-clogged neighborhoods? I will finish by letting the late, great Toni Morrison remind us, there is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. Join us, and thank you.
Don't forget the check.
I will get the check.